We're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to Orange County. We've been using the hashtag OC365 as the name of the user group. So it's Office 365. Because then whether it's Microsoft 365 or O365, it doesn't matter. You're in the Orange County 365 group. So we've got a few announcements for you before we get into the presentation and our special speaker today. I should have Ryan be introducing me, but that's all right. We won't worry about formalities. So, not a lot of announcements today, but I think there's some things I want to we can have some discussions about. The big thing is the first SharePoint Saturday, Office 365 Saturday, Microsoft 365 Saturday, which is the name we're using right now, is on April 25th. So that's
First
at
one
the
in Orange
Irvine
County.
MTC, first one ever. Yeah, that's definitely one where we want you to mark your calendars. Love to have you get involved. The call for speakers, the call for sponsors is still open for a few more days. The sponsor one is, the cutoff is for I guess the first layer cutoff is the 13th, where first come first serve kind of thing. We're basically letting everybody put their interest in, and then if we have too many under certain types, then we do a bit of a raffle. But sponsors is open right now. Speakers, has been open, and it closes
Saturday, if I remember right.
yeah, very soon, anyway, coming up this Saturday. It's sitting on our meetup group, so if you want to just sign up that way, the preference is going to be that we actually sign up through the registration, but at least we can tell, for those who want to just get it on your calendar, you can go sit up on the meetup right now, but there will be an Eventbrite for that. And it is going to be a limited number. I think somewhere around 200 is the cap, physical people. So anyway, that's something we do want, especially the user group, we want you guys to be able to get in and get registered. We don't have to turn anybody away. The next user group meeting is March 25th, so later this month. So this one, I appreciate those of you who accommodated your schedules. Had a death in the family last week, so I was out of town, but I appreciate being able to reschedule this and have you guys come. March 25th is going to be focused on workplace adoption analytics. Here, same time, same back channel on March 25th, and Ed from Tygraph is going to be speaking to us there. SPC, it's a little ways off, but you can mark your calendar for that. of things. Then we want to talk about Project Cortex. So these things really should answer, what is it, why is it, what's the business value there, and what's that business proposition of why they built a product around this stuff. And then I want to kind of give you some of my thoughts and feelings, so kind of visualizing Project Cortex, how I've wrapped my head around it. So there is some Microsoft slides in here. This is some industry stuff, and then kind of stuff I've built, along with what really the meat of what I want to share with you is what you should be doing now to prepare for it. And I am actually there's one particular slide from here that I'm actually going to start with. So I can tell you what I'm going to tell you, and then we'll reinforce it at the end. And I usually run out of time anyway, because I like to talk. So that way you know what I was going to tell you, even if we run out of time. In fact, what I'm going to do, it looks like this deck happens to not be the one where I put it at the front. So I'm going to jump to the end of the deck because I like the way that it worked in Chicago last week when I did it. I moved this slide here to the front. So there's a few things you could be doing today to prepare for Project Cortex. And interesting, one of the first things Microsoft really hasn't talked about yet. I mean, they've talked about, yeah, you should be going to modern UI, but a lot of the reasons to go to modern UI, I think that this should be number one. Basically, Project Cortex and the whole little hit highlighting thing where it highlights words does not happen in the classic UI. So first on your list is, if you care about Project Cortex, which eventually by the end of this session you may, modern UI is how it lights up. So we're talking either modern team sites or modern communication sites. I absolutely believe that as we also go through this session, you're going to realize that you probably don't have roles in your organization who are a natural fit for some of what we're going to be talking about. So who owns it? Who should own it? Who are these people who do the moderation and approval or are doing the machine teaching? Are they data scientists? Are these taxonomists? Are they librarians? Is it your SharePoint admin? You know what I mean? Like, basically, there's likely to be new roles. And even, I believe, I think this is a good hypothesis for you even. I like how Ron earlier was describing, Ron Rolfs here. He was mentioning that in his organization, everything in the little hamburger menu, the pie, the waffle, everything in the waffle is what his team is focused on, he and his colleague. I don't think there's many organizations that are there yet, where there's the Exchange team, or the SharePoint team, and the telecom team. What's very interesting about Project Cortex, it's something that's cross-tenant, where you'll notice as we go through this that there's UI in Teams, there's UI in SharePoint, there's UI in Power Platform, there's connectors in Azure, there's connectors to be able to integrate with your other systems. And with it being so far-reaching, and especially when you start talking about information management and organization-wide policies and cross-organizational information, is this your SharePoint admin? Is this? I absolutely think we need to think about things in a different kind of way. Not saying it's a reorg, but IT and this information management group, or however it's organized today, I expect there will be some shuffling around by the time this thing lands. But at the same time, I think this is a great opportunity for thought leadership. Brand new ideas that are huge ideas, you can ramp up and position yourself at that time that as this thing gets rolled out, I think there's a number of people who will be promoted as a result of this thing catching on and growing. I think this is a huge opportunity for people who have been working with SharePoint and Teams and so on with your tenants to launch their careers in a huge way. Even building teams around this stuff. There's your information architecture. I think a lot of companies are just doing this poorly. They just haven't really thought out the information architecture in the new ways around hubs, and even from a perspective of compliance and security around provisioning and cleanup. There's a lot of stuff that can and should be done that isn't happening in a lot of organizations. And I think that, we'll talk more about cleanup here, but essentially, the better your data is, the better your results are going to be with Project Cortex. And as well, your structure. So I expect there's going to be some companies who roll out Project Cortex and very quickly they put the brakes on because it exposes stuff that didn't have good compliance around it, wasn't classified, wasn't secured properly. It goes back to those days of you turn on search is too good because it's exposing stuff that previously was buried, and that's kind of what this thing does. Now that's not to say that this is Delve. This is not the new Delve. That's a myth. That's never been the case. This is a brand new product. Has nothing to do with Delve. You can find a couple of parallels, but for the most part, this is a totally different animal. You can visit your user profiles. So if you've been running with things, user profiles, hey, you're looking somebody up. Well, now we're actually saying these are your experts, right? And expertise, discovery, and focus on people is I'd say it gets highlighted in a big way, where it's like you find a term and you're now wondering, okay, here's the files related to that term, here's the people that relate to that term. Well, I'm going to be clicking on those people, and if the profiles have bad data, then you might, it's another thing where it's like you want people to have good, reliable experiences. And I would say one of the coolest things that Microsoft's released was zero fanfare. It was really cool when they made the video that showed the people search and showed people profiles. But how many people have deployed the building maps? That's a feature in search. It's a feature in the profiles, but nobody has deployed that. What a great opportunity to get in front of this, so when people are trying to find somebody now, they can go find the building and they can find out where the person is in the building. And it's not just a number, it's I can click on it and I can see the building and see where they sit or where their cube is or where their office is. So those building maps, it's designed to take your building maps and integrate them right in with search. And I think that the profiles, this is a definite decent area to invest in when around people search and expertise search. Semi-structured documents, where are those things? Where are the structured content? SharePoint, in its life cycle, it's courted data over time, but its wheelhouse has primarily been collaboration. People that are working on documents, collaborating on documents. Structured data, up to date, without a third party, it has not done structured data very well. Now with Project Cortex, you can essentially start looking at your structured and semi-structured documents because of the features that actually come with this from either a machine teaching perspective or even from a connector perspective. So knowing where your organizational data is, where the good business data is, it enables all sorts of interesting, kind of cool scenarios.
What do you really mean by structured documents as opposed to an unstructured document?
So a good question. An unstructured document is me writing a story or an article or whatever. I'm going to put my name at the top and a title somewhere, but the next guy who does it, he's going to put his title somewhere else and he's going to put his name somewhere else. Is he following the ABA standard or the BBC standard? Everybody has their own standard for how they create a document. Those are unstructured. a structured document, a purely structured document, not the semi-structured, but the structured document, it's always in the same place. Here's the box where you put the customer name and the customer address and it's a statement of work is a good example, or a PO, or an invoice, or maybe it's even something that's really special with your organization where there is the whatever, there's a template, and you're just filling in the data. The semi-structured is where maybe it looks like a form letter, but it's a letter, and sometimes but it always has this word before the customer name and the address, and there's an underline or whatever. You can basically use machine teaching to teach on those documents to say, in a structured document, you can basically say, this is, you basically feed it 5 documents, and it comes back and says, here's the areas that look consistent across those 5 documents.
Kind of like what people would use OCR for in the past, right? So if I want to pull out
and beyond. It's Cofax, FSoft, all these kinds of things where it's, in fact, let's say you got a bunch of faxes. It's everybody's time cards. In the past, you import those things into SharePoint, and it would give you the same creator for all of them, and all the created dates and modified dates are exactly the same, and that's your metadata. With machine teaching, we take 5 of those documents, and we say, these are all the same kind of document. We create a content center, put all those documents in that content center, and it says, I'm seeing these same things, and you click on the things, you give it nice names, and now when you add a document, it imports all that data as structured metadata.
It's a way for us to figure out to extract automatically metadata from documents.
Absolutely. So the OCR would happen either way. Like today, if you upload a PDF, if it's an indexable PDF, then you're going to get it from a search perspective, but it's not going to push it in as metadata.
It's not going to say, here's the total of the invoice in a column for you.
Yeah, and it can, right.
So we're looking at Project Cortex in that respect, with structured and semi-structured documents, to allow a business user trainable AI.
Yeah.
Is that what
I
we're
mean,
looking at?
Yeah. So I am telling you what I'm going to tell you. So when I tell you what the product is, it'll even make more sense. And I probably should speed up a little bit here. But basically, the intention is, there's a lot of stuff you can be doing today, right?
Yeah.
That if you said, hey, we're rolling out Project Cortex, you'd be like, all right, well, let's go let's go to modern UI, let's go, who should own this thing? Where's our taxonomists? Who are the people who care about these things? And, what are our enterprise content types? It's not that you have to go and do all those things and roll them out. It's a matter of, where are we? This is a bit of a scorecard where you can say, hey, there's some areas where we should invest so we have a better experience when Project Cortex arrives. And it's first half. So we're talking about a month or 2 before you'll be able to really get your hands on.
Have they announced any licensing information about it yet?
Not that I'm aware of.
I've not heard anything yet.
I've got a friend who's at AIM, which is this week. He hasn't, I'm expecting him to tell me if there's anything good that comes out of it. I know that they're revealing more of it at AIM this week, but I don't think they've mentioned the licensing yet. I think the thing that you can safely say is this is not going to just be in your...
They're going to roll it into an E5, for example.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying, like, let's just say somebody who's, I don't know, maybe there's not a safe way to even say it. It's not going to be free, is probably the safe way to say it.
Well, I figured it.
But I'm not saying that it's not an E5. I'm not saying that it's not in whatever.
E3 or whatever. But
Right.
it's not something they're going to give you for free. It's going to be part of an existing subscription, most likely.
Yeah.
Which one, I don't know. But
I mean, like forms, like E3, you get the free version of forms, but if you go E5, you get the more powerful.
Yeah, and that's what we're saying, is we're saying, we basically said we can't say. We're NDA. Even if we did know, we couldn't tell you. That's what we're saying.
Understood.
But they have been fairly clear that it's not going to be free, as in like the base package. Let's say it that way.
What interaction, if any, does it potentially have with Snowflake?
I don't know about Snowflake.
I don't know about Snowflake either.
Maybe when we get into the where it does touch, maybe that'll make more sense. But maybe I'll fill the class in with what is Snowflake.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, so I can do that. So it's just another database that deals with both structured and unstructured database, or data types.
Okay. Let's get to that part, because there is a connector slide, and maybe when you get to the connector slide, you'll be like, oh, well that'll help me get there. Is one of these the pointer thing? Is it this guy?
No.
This one?
Nope, down. Right underneath the.
Oh, there it is.
But I think with these TVs,
Oh, wild.
the TVs have an anti-reflective layer on it. That,
Cool. Interesting.
yeah.
I'm going to go quite faster. Enterprise forms. If you know where your enterprise forms are, this is another area where, because of this whole idea around it can learn, the machine teaching aspects, understanding your forms, and especially any strategy around your Power Apps, your Power Automate. There's a lot of good play with the Power Platform and Project Cortex. There's a new managed metadata service they announced at Ignite as well, the scalable million item plus. So there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes to support this. I'm not saying you have to go and tag all your documents. That's not what you need to be doing to prepare for Cortex. Cortex will actually give you a lot of automation capabilities, but if you know what your specific organizational taxonomy should be looking like, it's going to love that. It'll help seed it to be more successful. Information policies and file plans. Absolutely, if you know what you want to do retention-wise, or you want to know what you want to do classification-wise, doing that kind of homework will accelerate a Project Cortex project. Garbage in, garbage out. If you have a bunch of garbage, it's going to learn based on that garbage. Classification, unified labeling, DLP, a lot of that good stuff is other things that help lend itself. Yeah.
I want to go back to the concept of taxonomy. Do most organizations have a global taxonomy for the entire enterprise, or are they looking at taxonomies for certain departments, or where are we?
So I've worked in a dozen organizations. So with those dozen organizations that I've seen and clients that I've touched, absolutely there is a departmental hierarchy, right?
Okay.
This is HR, this is finance, this is IT. And inside of SharePoint, if you go into the managed metadata service, you would find nodes for each of those departments. Where you would find mature organizations is they may invest in some term sets. Certain site collections, or say the site collection hubs where they've got their enterprise content types, those are mature organizations. And that's very often it's just a handful of site collections that they've done that kind of structured work around. But in terms of, these are the locations of all of our offices, that's a great thing to have in your managed metadata.
Common terms that are used by everybody, and so if somebody says...
That's the hard one. I would
Okay,
say
that's
most
fine.
don't
Yeah.
have that, but a lot do have locations, organizations, things that could be very reusable whenever you create a site and you're adding a column,
Okay.
and you want people to pick from
Yeah.
that. The basic stuff is what most organizations have. And
So-
sometimes it's IT that's just populating because they're already done somewhere else.
So with Project Cortex, the taxonomy is going to have to be sort of strengthened, I would guess, for the organization.
I
Is that
think
a
it's
true
worth
statement?
investing, yes.
Okay.
I don't think it needs to be a 2-year project. And I think that Naomi Moneypenny would say it depends. I think she would say, don't let that project keep you from doing Project Cortex.
Okay.
Let it learn and reason over your data and even make suggestions based on the ontologies and terms that actually come out of it. I look at this and say, the organizations that have done their homework and have done a lot of this stuff, they're going to have a better experience with what comes out of it.
At the beginning.
Absolutely, at the beginning. They're going to see a faster rate of adoption. Another great example, Bill Bear on the search side, they released something for acronyms. those organizations that go and populate acronyms, that's a great thing for this to seed, because now you've got acronyms and definitions. What a great thing for it to populate Project Cortex with. In fact, I need to add that one to my list. But yeah. All right, so it probably is helpful for me to, my clicker stopped clicking. Oh, that's interesting. I apparently right-clicked. All right, so now I'm going to jump back to the beginning. All right, so we're going to go back in time. Oops. All right. Yep. If HP knew what HP knows, we would be 3 times as profitable. Thoughts? What does that mean?
Didn't spend time failing on what you knew was going to fail. You didn't spend time and money.
I think it's even more than that. I think this is even deeper than that. I think that even at the time, when I first heard this, I thought, is he talking about his employees not being smart? No. Is he talking about his employees not talking to each other? I don't think it's even that. I think it's when I look at this from the future, now looking at the past, because this was quite a while back, I think this very much speaks to enterprise search, and it talks about like content repositories, it talks about IP, this talks about essentially our failings as an enterprise as it relates to being able to know what we know.
It's like a collective knowledge, really, right?
Absolutely. Essentially,
If we were Borg, right?
if we were a Borg, we would be 3 times more productive. I like that. Yeah.
Only in an IT company.
That's really good. In fact, we might be 5 times more productive if we could be the Borg, because then it's super optimized. Yeah, you have a comment.
I was just going to say, on the HP side in particular, if I'm looking for well, it's back in the day, but if I was looking for a document, hardware or whatever, it wasn't something I could find using the HP search engine. I had to use Google every time.
Yeah, yeah.
And
You have to recreate the document.
Yeah,
Like,
it's a labyrinth. I mean, they have so much stuff.
yeah, yeah.
But you can't.
I think it was around the same time I was actually talking to the HP guys about their SharePoint environment. At the time, they had 52 separate farms in 2003, you know, or 2005, so in that time frame. And that's probably saying too much, but the idea of how do we tap into our data? How do we actually learn to know what we know? This absolutely is the problem we're trying to solve across IT, not just search, but across our ability. When we're creating these code repositories, it's about reusability. It's about being able to, hey, instead of just, we worked on that client, we created some IP, now we're starting over from scratch on customer number 2? No, we should have actually created some reusable IP. We should have created some templates out of that. We should have, that demo we spent all that time building, we should be able to press a button and change the logos and change all the names for some new client, you know what I mean? Like, and as well, how often the guy who's really smart, who just retired, all that IP just walked out the door. When I was an engineer at Microsoft, I had this very reoccurring conversation with my boss where he would say, hey, we had an outage. It took the other engineers 3 hours. It took you 5 minutes, Joel. You are not documenting well enough. It's like, no. You know what? I've created the architecture documents. I've created the troubleshooting guide. Hopefully the problem they had was in the troubleshooting guide, but very likely it wasn't. There's this thing that's tribal knowledge. There's these things we know that if we could transfer that knowledge into somebody else's head, it's like that Borg collective thing. The new employee comes in, taps in, now he's able to tap all that information. That's not how it works. So how we can create an environment so that when the new employee joins, they can know it. I am taking a little bit too much time to talk about this, but the story is absolutely important. Over time, if you think about this, we used to have keyword search, and that was our ability to discover documents. You know, we'd index the documents, look for keywords, we'd search, and basically typing a word and try and match words that are in documents. It got a little bit better when they added natural language processing and some semantics around, oh, well, if it's in the title, it ought to be higher, it should be boosted. You know, Google, as an example, with their trackbacks and linkbacks, that added some semantics and more context to the internet. And in fact, they even taught people how to essentially game their own game by saying, fill in your keywords, fill in your metadata on your website. In the enterprise, we have absolutely struggled to get users to think about it in the same way. Populate your titles. Hey, update the author on that PowerPoint, you know, whatever. There's things that you can do, but people just don't populate metadata, right? So then we had contextual search. And I think if you go to Office 365, we're here and beyond with this idea of, hey, I know who your team is, I know who you report to, I know your context inside the organization, I know you're a PM, I know that you collaborated on email with this person, so these documents are more relevant. So that helps from a relevancy perspective. Now you add more of that human interaction even and say, these are popular, these are trending, these are things that are happening around you. We start taking all those clues from Microsoft Graph of, we know that this is new and relevant and social distance and so on. It makes it much more kind of the cognitive search that gives us human interaction and all those kinds of things added into it. That next level is where we start saying,
Yeah, I want to bring up the concept of
Synonyms?
synonym search. That is also a big part of all of this.
Sure.
So that you don't put in an exact term
yep.
and expect to get results.
Some of the natural language processing does that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So then jumping to this next level where we say, what if you didn't even know what you needed to search for? The no-click search, the contextual search, where I'm reading a document, I don't know what this is, but I can hover over it, I can right-click on it, whatever. I can interact with the words themselves and gain insights and knowledge. You're a new employee, you have no idea what's going on, but you can do these kind of no-click search to find what's happening around you, what's trending, what's popular, what's contextual from my team is working on these things. And with machine teaching and so on, we'll dig into this later, but basically think of this as a next full-on evolution as to where we've come and where we're going and beyond. They're even talking about release 2, and we haven't even got release 1. Yeah, there's a lot more coming from this. So what are the problems we're trying to solve? Silos of information, physical documents that are in filing cabinets, search challenges that essentially they hurt productivity and team effectiveness because we're recreating those documents over and over and over again. It's the tacit and explicit knowledge. Now, it took me a while to wrap my head around tacit knowledge, but I think the quickest way to explain it, explicit knowledge is what is in your documents and your databases. Okay, so we have the explicit knowledge. It's about 5% of organizational knowledge. 95% of it is actually tacit. That is your tribal, cultural, it's the IP that is around conversational. Here's your expert. Everything in his head is your tacit knowledge. How we can tap into that expertise of individuals and communities absolutely is what this thing is about as well. There's the knowledge drain of people leaving your team and organization. You know, it's like your ability to tie the project back to the experts, and then the documents that they create, and the meetings that they're having, and the IP that's connected to that, and the related projects. It's like that's the power of Amazon. the books, you're on Amazon, you're searching for something. The thing you started looking for before when you started shopping versus what you ended up buying, you don't necessarily know, what you were searching for versus what you bought. Somehow along there, that path you took was a lot of that path of related, popular, trending, what your community essentially says is the right thing for likely where you went searching and started your journey. And these discovery use cases are things like the one-step access to the insight, the multiple touch points. Instead of just a little stupid search box, it's contextual. No matter where I am, I can gain access to that knowledge and tap into it, embedded right in the applications. And then as well, the analytics and insights that actually come out of audits and analysis of what's happening in the organization. So when it's actually crawling and understanding the signals and so on. And this is basically, these use cases actually come from Gartner. And this is actually a Forrester thing here. So you can actually see the industry is actually supporting the need for what we're talking about here.
Is there any talk around any sort of GDPR or because
Absolutely.
it's right?
Absolutely.
And then how's that tied into?
Bring that up in about 15 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, good stuff. Data process. So basically, with data itself continues to be enhanced with business understanding the data. We enhance it. We add preparation. There's the modeling that goes on. A lot of this is AI, right? Essentially, as we dig into Project Cortex, you'll see how this becomes more relevant as a organizational insights and knowledge that we're learning, we're growing. The things aren't so static as they were. So let's talk about Cortex at Ignite. This is absolutely a Microsoft slide. What are they focused on? Empowering people with knowledge and expertise in the apps they use every day. So this includes the highlighting topics, suggested expertise areas for your profile, and so on. Connecting to organizational knowledge across your teams and systems, managing, protecting content with AI, so there's a little bit of what you're talking about. Extracting, classifying unstructured content, training models to recognize your business data. You've created this. You'll find there's a couple of different places. There's the Knowledge Center and the Content Center. We're going to dig in on those a little bit more. But as places where you can, the Content Center is where we actually train it on our documents. The Knowledge Center actually is this, until we get better words, I'm calling it the organizational Wikipedia.
Question. Since a lot of the searching indexing is done on the back end, the models that are built based on the taxonomy, is that the same model that is used to present data to every user, or does it take into consideration security? So
It does.
Okay.
It's all security trend.
Okay. 'Cause
Absolutely. And I think I want to get to a later place when we dig into that a little bit more too.
Because I know my customers are going to ask that.
Absolutely. All security trimmed,
Okay.
but as well, if you say, hey, we've got some highly sensitive stuff, well, don't include it. You can exclude.
Specific teams
Yeah.
or sites.
Another good prepare thing on that list, go secure your data. Go classify your data so you can say, you know what, Project Cortex, we're going to ignore the stuff that's highly sensitive. Because then it's never going to, even if it didn't have security on it, it's never going to pop up as, hey, here's some terms that we want you to classify. It's like, oh, we're not ready for those to be consumed by the enterprise,
Yep.
even though the terms and the documents related to them are security trimmed. So this is a couple of Microsoft visuals. I'm a very visual person. Here you've got, she's feeding it content. It highlights stuff within the content. It turns on the business data. Time happens and so on, business processes. You've got search. And it's kind of the conveyor belt of automation. So I kind of like this little diagram. It obviously oversimplifies it. There's even more going on than that, but at least you can imagine there are people that are feeding content to this. It's a machine, and it's going to do all sorts of automation, but you probably want to have somebody along that. You know, you need Lucy up there checking the chocolates. I'm just kidding. Another way to look at this is you got your content, you feed it to AI, and it presents up across your tenant, SharePoint, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and so on, first online. But essentially it highlights terms across it based on the, it's the robot that's doing the majority of the work here with this first iteration. Another way to kind of look at this is, what is knowledge management? Knowledge management is the process of capturing, distributing, and effectively using knowledge over time. Capture, create, collect, classify. Distribute, retrieve, share, manage. Use, we're going to consume, reuse, and enhance. So it itself is a process. Knowledge management is a process. Capturing content, capturing knowledge, distributing that to where it should be consumed, and then using it, and it's a process. So here's our first kind of looking at the UI of Project Cortex. We're looking at a SharePoint page that's modern, and you can see it's got some highlighted terms, and what you're seeing is a topic card. And these topic cards live, this knowledge that's in them lives in the Knowledge Center. You can see what this one already has. You can suggest edits, you can follow this. You've got documents that are in there, you've got people that are in there, you've got related topics, you've got a start date for the project, an end date for the project. And essentially what's happened here, AI generated this topic, and a human curated it and said, yes, this is good. It's suggesting experts, it's suggesting related documents, it's discovering content. You can edit it, you can add documents, you can add experts. Essentially, you can kind of manage these things. But as an example as well, you see right at the top, CORE. What's CORE? CORE is an acronym. It stands for these things. It's also a project, and here's the project site. There's also been conversations around this stuff, and here's a Q&A related to it, or so on. So another kind of less animated one. Here we are looking at CORE, and you can see our nice little topic card. And you can see as it actually is, here's our SharePoint page. This is a modern page, and you can see it just highlights terms on the page. This is looking at a user profile, and you can see the Ask Me About add topics. Topics make it easier for people to learn more about your responsibilities and interests. The Ask Me About here is even suggesting some topics based on documents I've been working with or uploading and so on. So it absolutely enhances this. Even the, hey, strengthen your profile by adding topics you're working on. So we're tying the people to the topics. And even when you go into a topic card, or when you're in Knowledge Center, here's trending topics. And when you go to a topic in the Knowledge Center, you can even see, here are the people who are contributing to this topic. This person has added these 10 documents. And it's not that they're adding it to a place, it's that they're working with those documents. So you can actually, they're establishing their expertise on those topics just by simply doing what they're doing already.
So it's doing a lot of pre-searching categories.
Absolutely, absolutely. So here we are looking at the Knowledge Center. Think of the Knowledge Center, again, as that organizational Wikipedia of topics. There's less human things going on here. There's human curation, but humans aren't adding, per se, a lot here. This is basically the AI is suggesting topics. Those things are being curated once they're approved. Obviously, it's all security trimmed. And you have these sets of topics that are related to my topics, LinkedIn Learning, trending topics. You're an employee, you're starting to go navigate these topics and learn. But even senior employees, hey, there's a new project. I wasn't aware of this project. What is that? Click on it. There's people who are working on it, how it's related, SharePoint site that's related to it, conversations related to it. I'm a one click away from the next meeting to join, Here's Word, and in Word, I highlight a term, go to the smart thing, and here essentially is that same core topic integrated right into the applications I'm using every day. The experts, the documents and resources, the definition, and even connections to learn more. I don't like what I see, I want to suggest an edit, moderation around the topic, and so on. I'm having a conversation with somebody, and I asked them a question, they gave me a really good answer. That's tacit knowledge, that's tribal knowledge. I don't want to lose that. Well, I can call up the knowledge bot and say, hey, knowledge bot, add this Q&A as part of construction operations reliability. Got it, I'll add it to the topic construction operations reliability. And you're talking about synonyms, absolutely. Core is a synonym to construction operations reliability, which is also in the sustainability organization, blah, blah, blah. So it takes advantage of those. But this ability inside of Teams to capture a question and answer pair and have that be stored as part of the topic.
And that makes, so that would make this private chat, or at least that part of the chat, as externally viewable?
It does take this, it's not about everything that's happening
Right.
here. It's
Just-
a question
just-
and answer pair. Here's a
Right.
question, here's an answer.
Right.
I call up the knowledge bot to be able to kind of extract that and stick it in the topic.
Into the knowledge center.
Yep. Which will be curated by a human.
Gotcha, okay.
Does it know to look for the word question? Right. So if someone had answered the question and then someone
I-
wrote thanks and stuff like, does that
So-
screw it up? You know what I mean?
I do think that there's probably a right way, just like with Alexa, you got to say the right thing.
Yeah.
That being said, I haven't spent any time with the knowledge bot. But yeah, I'm sure there's a proper way to evoke the knowledge bot.
And I'm sure somebody's gonna have to curate it, because even right here, the first response is, yeah, I get asked that question very frequently. It's gonna have, really what you want is the second part. So I think it's probably gonna take some of that information, and somebody's gonna have to go back through and say, okay, yeah, here's the key pieces.
Yeah, right.
Someone will do it, or won't the artificial intelligence do it?
I would think someone may have to
The AI is
verify at the
going to
beginning,
grab it and it's going to be curated.
because like right now, the AI is like, okay, well, which response is actually the answer?
But the natural language processing should be able to pull that out and say that's not really what you're looking for.
Right, but it's also going to say, hey, they get that both of those answers have valuable information.
Here was the question.
One,
Okay.
they
And
get the information.
said,
They get asked that question
yes,
as part of this,
and then
here's
it's
more.
a good
So,
question.
which
Here's
part of
the
it?
answer.
Yeah, so it's like somebody's going to say, okay, this is the part that you
pair
actually care
he
about.
wants, not this part.
Okay.
But it could be this entire thread was super relevant. What we don't have yet is it's in private preview. So what we won't dig into today is the how, and, the very specific nuance of the features. Yeah.
So is it safe to say that this Cortex is like a contextual AI? So while you're interacting with data, it's just constantly pulling information that's relevant? Or?
From a team's perspective, absolutely, it's there as a bot ready to go. That's the knowledge bot part of it. If you're in SharePoint, there's three ways to look at it. It's your knowledge center, which is your organizational Wikipedia. It's the content center, which is your, it's the machine teaching place, and it's where your automation, hey, when these things happen in these columns, then do this, kick off my flows, or gather data with an enterprise form. It's really quite broad. So I've got a slide when I wrap my head around it, which we'll get to in just a second. But here we are talking about the content center again. The content center looks a lot like SharePoint. Here we can create a new, we're in the accounting content center, and we can create a new library right in our content center. So it's a very SharePoint-like experience. But what's new here is we're going to go into AI Builder and build a model. we're gonna do some machine teaching. We're gonna upload some files, have it do some auto extract some metadata out of here, kick off one of our Power Automate flows to then, for things where it relates to this customer, do this, or whatever.
So then, by this being called the accounting content center, so
Yeah,
that
you
would-
can have many content centers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And this is not where so you wouldn't move all your accounting documents to here, this is just where you're building the models. and
Building the
training them.
models, yeah.
And then that gets pushed out to the rest of your SharePoint.
Not necessarily. You can train it here, build a model, then use that model elsewhere. But as well, these can be, here's your purchase orders for Q3. This can be where you're putting all your purchase orders.
Okay,
This is SharePoint. Storage is in SharePoint.
okay.
So multiple content centers in one
One tenant.
tenant.
Mhm. Here's the accounting content center. We're talking about column extraction, all that kind of good jazz. Here's the PDF. It automatically pulls out the PO, the date, the recipient, the total, right out of the scanned content or right out of the structured digital document.
So, and this will be a different template from communications in the team site, right? Okay.
Yeah. So this content center is a new object. It's a new thing.
Something else we gotta teach the users, or us.
And this isn't your average user who's going to be probably building
Don't
and
try.
training and so on. If you
Don't
can,
try.
that's sure. There are a set of web parts, your knowledge web parts, trending, expertise finder, knowledge graph viewer, so being able to see the heuristics and ontologies and so on. LinkedIn Learning, we haven't talked too much about this, but personalized training. Wow, we can get training based on what it's learning about me and what I care about based on topics I'm following.
But doesn't that cost
Interesting.
license?
Yeah, licensing is something that I should have started from licensing aside. We're going to talk about this stuff. I'm not trying to sell you.
Get some money back from buying LinkedIn. Okay, we'll put it in here.
So here's the relationship. Here's an example of an ontology, or it's an ontology. So we have Project Core has emails that are related to it. There's searches and databases and people and conversations and other topics and other experts in other teams and those who relate to your team. So you get, this person has contributed 10 resources. This person's working on Mark 8, which related over here. This person is an industry development expert. This one's contributed, they're the accountant, and they've contributed 12 resources. So you get a quick view of my term, but also learn and gain insights when I'm diving into it. So really quick, what is Microsoft doing? They're extracting. It extracted this definition. Project Core focuses on blah, 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 blah. There's an acronym called CORE. It's grouping things. Here's some related people. Lee Gu is a related person to this term. There's some related files, such as construction to the core. They're clustered and kind of brought together with those ontologies and related topics and so on. Mark 8 is a related topic to Project Core. And another kind of visual here where you can see that Mark 8 is actually mentioned in 6 resources about construction operations reliability. So it's actually building these. These humans don't have to build those ontologies. It actually learns from the documents. So I want to give you a couple of visuals of me kind of wrapping my head around it, then I'm going to wrap it up. So this is one sample, not the end-all be-all. In fact, in my latest version of this, I took all the arrows out of it. There's a number of things going on here. There's the AI reasoning that happens with Project Cortex. There's the indexing and extraction that happens, the machine teaching aspects of it, the ontology models, the managed metadata service, the analytics. Another example here is me kind of wrapping my head around this, saying Project Cortex essentially reasons over your data, recognizes images and text, it extracts text, adds entities into the graph, those topics are auto-generated. Their projects, their products, their processes, their customers, these terms, essentially, these topics. Those topics are organized into a knowledge center, which lives in SharePoint, but is exposed in a number of different ways. But essentially, it's topics, content, people, and so on. Experts curate the content, which is security trimmed. Those are highlighted in the UI across SharePoint, Teams, modern SharePoint, Teams, as well as Word, Excel, PowerPoint online. We know they'll eventually make their way to the clients. And SharePoint people can even add knowledge parts and so on. But there's even ways that we humans can get involved in this process by invoking the knowledge bot in Teams, through conversation pairs in Yammer, and new Yammer. Through the Content Center, we can train our documents with structured libraries and files. We have the search connectors. There's the AI builder, where we can basically build models. And then we've got Power Automate for building and handling forms and form processing and more automation, all of which then enhances this as it gets better and better, producing these ontologies and topics and so on. So you can see this is not just one new service like Teams. This is a service that essentially expands across your tenant, where you've got enhancements to the SharePoint side, the Power App, Power Platform side, through the knowledge capture, the quick reference side, and even connecting knowledge through the connectors. And let me keep you one thing. So things that you can do, things like classification, DLP, like protecting your content, and essentially you can join the private preview, aka.ms/Project Cortex. Product team is still recruiting and bringing people in. Even with the public preview, essentially they're slowly adding more and more and more people into this pre-release, what's going on with Project Cortex. And that's about it. Any questions?
Should we turn over to Paul
Yes.
and then hit questions?
Yeah,
Just
and
so
I can even
we're-
save some of my questions for a little bit later, but yeah, so we'll put that on hold. But anyway, thanks everybody for taking the time. Maybe while Paul's setting up, I can answer a couple questions.
Yep.
Do you want the white one? Or this?
He just needs the HDMI cable. No, you need, oh, you can plug it that way. Yeah.
So any questions about anything while I think we went kind of fast with the end. And yeah, and I know that we were going to revisit some.
Here you go.
Okay.
Here you
Mine's a philosophical type of question.
I want to get into the world of videos and extracting data out of the videos and things like that. Is there
That's
anything-
included here too. So
That is
absolutely,
included.
videos, audio
go. Yeah, it's the TVs. They just.
are included.
Okay, and it's not doing it just from metadata on
No,
the video?
no, it's extracting content.
From the transcript and things like that?
Yep.
Like facial recognition, that's in there right now.
Yeah, basically, if you're doing those kinds of things, it does help. So like if you got your streams and so on. But we'll hand that over to Paul, and we'll come back with more.
Okay, guys. So we also excited in SharePoint to list about Project Cortex, and this is our work that we were doing for the last year, and kind of when you see the work that we did, you kind of understand why we're excited about the Project Cortex. One of the key features for us is that Project Cortex helps companies to actually extract data from documents and put it into the metadata. And metadata is one of the key features of SharePoint, because if you remove the metadata from SharePoint, then you get into OneDrive, right? So That's the key thing. But unfortunately, it's very underused in the kind of current implementations, mostly. So, saying that, we have created a new app. It's called Navigator. It's kind of cut on this, but it's called Navigator. The whole idea is about being able to search and discover information and present it in a nice, structured way. Essentially, it's an SPFX application, so it works in SharePoint, it works in Microsoft Teams, both as the Teams personal app and Teams tab, and hopefully at some point we'll get it to Outlook as well. So what we're trying to solve. So there are numerous challenges that current user has in both Teams and SharePoint. So one of the most kind of Teams related is siloed file experience in Teams. So essentially you have, 10, 20 teams, 10 channels each. You got like 200, 300 channels, and you also have this files tab. You can search across things, but it's kind of hard to surface the data. It's hard to see where the new documents being contributed to, unless someone explicitly tags you, right? So other things that are not really working well and require some extra things, extra efforts is regular document search and discovery across Office 365. Microsoft is doing some great things. Other vendors are also doing some great things, but search-driven intranet experience is always a challenge. You can do stuff, but it's kind of tricky. We also looked into things like duplicate detection, because people creating many duplicates of the same documents, and now you have no clue where anything lives. Taxonomy and managed metadata, that's what I was talking about from the start. And also some of the compliance pieces. So let me give you some samples. So, the SharePoint intranet. What we've seen, so we've done like a bunch of different migrations and implementation with lots of customers. So we've seen this situation with many departments where they don't really very ready to the complex intranet. What they're interested in is to store documents and easily being able to surface them for the other people, especially when it comes to communication sites. They're great, they look nice, and you have empty news section, you have couple links and a document library. That's it, right? So one of the usages that we have with our tool is ability to actually aggregate documents and surface them in a structured way across the site collection, the selection of sites, the selection of document library, whatever you want, right? So it's very flexible. So for many of our customers, we actually provide this as a kind of default intranet experience when they, come into this one of the sites for their departments. So the next one is personal Teams app, and essentially it's a way to create your own dashboard for the documents. So you would like to see across the organization of what's going on with your documents, what documents your group is contributing, what's being available. You would like to search across what you have here, and you would like to also kind of structure it differently. Let's say structure it by contributor, seeing what your team is being working on, and who's doing more documents, who's doing less documents, right?
So this is showing documents that is outside of the Teams channels as well?
Yes,
So,
yes.
okay.
Anything in SharePoint. So it covers SharePoint, Teams, which is also
Yes.
SharePoint, and OneDrive, which is always SharePoint.
Yeah.
Technically, now it covers also the Yammer, which is also SharePoint. So at the end of it, it's all SharePoint. It's just kind of hidden from the user. And you can also use it as a Teams tab, as I mentioned, and in this case, this is some aggregation that's available across the team within this or that channel, but it's always, again, under the same, under your security. So security treatment always applies. So you can only see, let's say you're trying to aggregate everything within your 50 channels, you know, in this particular team, but you would see only stuff that you have access to, so those like 5 private channels you won't see, but some people will do. So we've got another feature, as I mentioned, proactive duplicate detection. Again, we kind of getting it from SharePoint as well. We're just surfacing this information proactively. Essentially, every time you go to your dashboards, we detect if there are duplicates and allow you to kind of filter it down and see what are those duplicates, like a refiner. Taxonomy, we love taxonomy, and again, that's one, unfortunately, like an unloved feature of SharePoint for many customers. Like they either don't get it or they don't really have enough kind of workforce to deal with that. But anyway, so our tool is can work with taxonomy, can surface anything tagged and structure it based on the hierarchies that you've got in your taxonomy. And like the samples of this would be like, let's say, any like document management situation when you're tagging it by customer, when you're tagging it by like type of contract, type of document, policy and procedures, when people tag things around organization and you would like to get it all on one page in a structured way. So as a sample with the taxonomy and our tool, you can bring up this kind of experience to the end users like literally in a couple minutes. We also support document sets. So again, it's very easily, very structured experience when you can see, you know, few document sets easily in one place, and also search across those document sets and surface the data out of it in a structured way in the context of those document sets.
Will this work across conversations as well, or chats?
Not yet. We're looking into it, but not yet. And like one of the last things that we kind of getting into, it's also, we call it democratizing compliance, because compliance is always like a feature that's somewhere out there for compliance managers or maybe for an admin, but there are actually pieces of it that are exposed to the end user in this or that way. So what we do, we allow you to search, group, and filter or refine by retention labels, by sensitivity labels, and we also can surface such information as the sensitive information types. Just to give you like a kind of underlying thing to it, it's usually hidden, but in reality, Microsoft is actively searching through the content of every document, and it tags if there were some sensitive types found in any document out there. So for example, you can see that, okay, most likely this document has social security numbers in it, right? So we can surface this information, filter it down, and do these things as well. So, and it's all exposed to the end user. You don't have to be compliance manager, you don't have to access to the compliance center, etc. And, you know, also that's kind of the compliance feature, but you can also export all this information to Excel and work with it the way you would like to, right? So there is an export feature of it. And I'm trying to kind of rush it up because I would like to kind of also show you the demo, not just the slides of this, right? But just to say this, we also have, so for this solution, we do have a 30-day trial available to download. There is also a free version that's kind of you get out of this trial. So after the trial ends, you get the free version that has only one limitation at this point of time. It's 30 documents, you know, on a screen, on a dashboard. The app is an SPFX app, so it is hosted within your SharePoint environment. It's not using Azure. It does not require Azure consumption, and it's fairly easy to install, right? As any other SPFX app out there, right? Let me switch to my demo environment to give you an idea how it works. So I will start from Teams. So for example, we've got here a team. Oh, just a sec. How does it? Moment. Let me do the mirror.
Yeah.
Perfect. It is now smaller. I'll probably go like this at least. Okay. So here you've got your, let's say, like teams with lots of teams, lots of channels, as you know, many of you do. So here we've got store portal team with a bunch of channels. So if you would go through and try to surface documents out of it, you would have to literally go like tab by tab, wait for it, wait for it. Okay, here it is. Nothing new, right? Next one. So it is fairly painful. So what we allow you to do is to add a tab that is called Navigator. Which will give you the wizard of what you're trying to surface here. So as you can see from here, you can select from Teams, SharePoint, OneDrive, or any custom URL within the SharePoint space. So let's select the current team, for example. So it gives you kind of predefined views, like my document, recent document, all documents, and documents structured by contributor. Don't have my documents here, but so let's go to all documents. So here are all your channels. You can, and obviously, you know, you usually have a little bit more real estate on your page, right? So you can see everything within this experience it's completely mobile friendly, right? You can easily look into the document, see the information about this document, jump into the actual work with any of the document, including, you know, like conversations, comments around it. You can also easily navigate from these buttons to a particular repository, and it will show you if it's a channel, it will get you here. If it's a SharePoint site, it will get you there. So kind of quick links and navigation links to get you. And you can also see it in this kind of grouped view that is more like intranet style mobile friendly view, but you can also see it in a regular experience like you usually do, right? But again, everything is structured the way you want. But at the end of it, you can also see it, let's say, by contributor. So now we can see here that, let me expand, these are the people who were actually contributing these documents. So it's a very, and by the way, here are the duplicates found. So you can actually find some of the duplicates here and see that.
Quick question. So if you have a document with co-author, and let's say there's 5 contributors, is that going to show in 5 places?
So for contributing, we kind of combining, so there is no contributor in SharePoint settings, right? You have the person who modified, the person who created, etc. So we kind of surface all those signals and put it all together, you know, but it has to be in SharePoint search, obviously. So, so as far as I remember, it gets it from the property of the document as an author. We also have modified by and created by. So these 3 essentially combines the contributor. But you can also say author or say modified by. We also provide you with the additional filters, like in here. So you have the file type, you have the author. You can do modified, created by, those sensitive information types, as well as any custom refiners. So I kind of got through the kind of process through the wizard, but in addition to the wizard, there is also a way to go into the settings and you have the full search configuration where you can select the source. If you would like to bring in the team side content, meaning right now, let's say we're just surfacing data that is within the channels, right? But if you're using this teamified team site with additional document libraries, you can just click on this and that will bring it all together. You can add additional filters, the additional KQL queries. You can control the default limit, so we're kind of limiting you the output. We don't really want you to try to get 1 million records at the same time. Our recommended is probably like up to 2,000 at the same time, and then use refiners to kind of bring it down. You can also control the layout, including the grouping, right? So just to give you an idea, here are the grouping options that we have. So anything like the team, the channel, the metadata hierarchy, the term, the site, content type, author, editor, contributor, hub site, retention labels, sensitivity labels, and sensitivity information types. And you can kind of shuffle those groupings around, in any way. So essentially, with this one, we kind of treat the structure, the site, the folder, the document library, the hub site, we treat it as a part of metadata of the document, which it is, and allow you to group it based on this metadata. Yeah?
Real quick, am I correct in assuming that if you include the SharePoint content, it's also going to look at pages, news?
Yes,
things?
yes. You
And
can also
news
filter
items?
it down. So right now we're focusing on documents.
Right.
We do have, let's say, events and items as a, in the roadmap. Right now we were all focused on the documents.
If everybody wants to pull out your parking passes, we'll go quick. So I would just a while.
You can also control some of the visual things, like how you would like it to visualize. We kind of give you, by default, we're giving you all the options, but because you can use this in different settings, let's say again, within the SharePoint site, you would probably want to limit some things, right? Because it's kind of dashboards, it's a proactive experience, but on a SharePoint site, maybe you want it to be 1 column. You can preset it, right? Or 2, or whatever, right? Maybe you would like to remove this search string up there because you can like search. I haven't seen that like this, right? So this gives you like in-memory search from what you have here, right? But maybe you don't really want that for the end user on your intranet site. So it really depends. So we give you really flexible options in terms of configuring all the features. And at the end of it, we also give you a way to work with refiners. Here are the standard refiners available, but essentially you can add another refiner to work with any metadata you have for your document.
So can this visual be added to a modern page?
Yes, as a web part. So just giving you, so this is a communication site, right, for example. So again, that's the experience you have, right? Again, you can change things around. Again, you can work with different columns like this. You can, see the list as well. You can search.
And with this web part, can you pull in data from your, a specified team site?
Yes. Again, you can select either per, like, I would like to get this site, this site, this site. I would like to get this team, this team, this team, or here are my URLs that I would like get data from, because you can say, I just need this document library and that document library, just put it in and it will all put it together.
I saw on one of the screenshots there was a navigator option on the sort of left-hand side. Does that sort of default to all the teams that you're a member of? So if you wanted to see pretty quickly the last 30 documents that anybody had touched as in teams you're a member of?
So which one? You mean?
So on the left, where you got files and calls and that sort of stuff, there was a navigator icon.
Here, the navigator. No, it's when it's an app, because it's an app, it's available for your users. So you have to either add it through this interface. You can also, and in this case, that's a personal app. That means when it's a personal app, you do hear everything for only you see this.
Yeah. So what I was trying to say, yeah, this is, I don't in this area, I don't need to tell it all the teams that I want it to do. It's automatically going to look at all the teams I'm a member of.
It depends. As I'm showing you, right? So when you're creating a new dashboard, right, you can launch a wizard and you can select the teams like this, literally, pick and choose. Only what you have access to, though. The same with the SharePoint site. It's either all SharePoint site, then like everything that I have access to. But sometimes that could be overwhelming. So you can.
Can I do all teams as well, though?
Yep. We kind of force you to select still.
Yeah, because the problem. So here's my use case, right? So I'm a member of 30 teams, right? I set something up. I get added to 4 more teams. Do I have to go in here and reconfigure it to go and add the other 4?
At this point of time, yes.
That's the pain in the backside.
Yes,
right?
I know. There is a technical implications with that. The reason the KQL, we actually running search behind the scenes. So the KQL has the limitation of 4,000 characters. We have to specify every team out there. So when you get, like 500 teams, will run out of characters, right? So at this point of time, we used to have this all. We removed it because like some of our customers had just too many teams and they were running into this issue. So we kind of asking you to select. We actually have things in roadmap that should fix it, So, but at this point of time, you have to select. Also, the same with SharePoint. You select the selected SharePoint sites. It gives you all the information. Just go pick and choose.
I like how you have hub sites in there as well.
You also have OneDrive, which could be from the current team site, or you can just select the user, or you can see your own stuff, right? And custom, as I mentioned, just put the resource URL, and we will try to surface information from it.
So for step 1 data sources, you choose one of these or multiple?
At this point of time, you choose one of these. So when you want to combine, let's say, SharePoint and team sites, you would either use the SharePoint or the custom URLs, because SharePoint would actually contain both from the SharePoint perspective, it will contain this. Yeah. So you just treat it as a SharePoint site in this case.
And this question I think was asked, but just want to make sure I'm clear. When you point to SharePoint, it's not just giving you documents; it's giving you pages.
So page is a document, technically. So at this point of time, we get the documents and document sets, saying that page is also a document. So you can say, I would like to just show these pages, and let's say create a quick web part with the page navigation across various sites. That could be done again with just a few clicks, right? So page is a document, but list items are not, right? So right now we're not surfacing list items, but we have it in roadmap.
What about OneNote pages?
OneNote pages, that's a separate story. We'll have to sit down with you on that. Because, so SharePoint actually, so the SharePoint is treating OneNote pages a little bit different from anything else, right? So, yeah, so to answer your question, yes, we can handle the OneNote, but there are some intricacies to it, right? Because it's not it would not surface you the document as a OneNote. It would actually surface you the pages. They would look like a separate documents, right? So it's a little bit different, just because that's how the OneNote is being handled.
Well, actually,
Yeah.
being surfaced as pages would actually be helpful, I think. I mean, let's say.
So just give you a sample. So here's my all SharePoint sites, and let's do just all documents, right? All document, all pages, right? So now it's all of it, right? So let me go all pages. Now I need to go to the settings, and in search configuration, I would like to, is it under filter? No. I don't remember. Let me do this. Just for a quick overlay,
Oh, and,
right?
oh, it shows up as an ASP.
So you can actually configure it in the settings as well. So these are all the pages that you have across your SharePoint tenant that you have access to, right? Again, in a structured way, you can click on any. It will actually give you the preview. Hold though, and you can actually jump into it from here. Right? So obviously, it's a little bit an overkill because we are across the whole environment. So you would probably want to focus on particular sites, But yeah, that's the experience. And again, as you can see, it's very quick. So essentially, you're creating those dashboards either for you or for other users or for your team, SharePoint, or Teams, Microsoft Teams, and yeah, you work with it. So we feel like, if this saves your general user 10 minutes a day just in Teams, because it's easier to find what's going on, every day that you come in, that's already very valuable, because you have too many users, too many teams, too many channels. And again, the intranet experience, it's very easy to work with it. We used, so just to give you the history, we used to have different product. It was called SP Hub, right? That was close to what you see here, but it was just taxonomy driven, and it was great. We had great experience with some companies using that on their intranets, but the challenge is tagging documents. You have to kind of enforce this. It's hard. But because now we're not really connected with taxonomy, we can use it if we want. But aside from that, essentially using all this physical structure as a taxonomy, right? Because taxonomy to some extent kind of replaces this folder structure that people usually do, but in reality they still do the folder structure, right? They still do that. So instead of trying to kind of resolve this and force them not to do it, just use it. That's it. So yeah, if you have any questions, if you would like to run a trial again, there were a slide with all the information, or you can reach out to me, or just search for Navigator of SharePoint, etc. You will get to our site. You know, if you have any questions after this event, let me know. We'll be glad to give you a personal demo. Okay. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Paul.
All right, thanks, everybody. So the next meeting is 3 weeks. And yeah.